Hello. Today I'm going to show you how we can add crash detection into our BeamNG scenarios using Flowgraph, as well as how to use variables and have varied endings. Okay, so first let's go straight into the crashing. To detect crashing, I will normally do that in the gameplay loop because the gameplay loop runs every single tick. It is also where I have my game timer, so it makes sense to also have my crash detection here. The game timer is running all the time, so whenever this thing runs all the time, I like to put it up here. It doesn't matter in Flowgraph where you put it. It's just for my own, my own way of working things out. And then I add the waypoints. I have the rocks falling, if you remember that from the last video. After a small wait, you win the game. It's very simple. We will add some more stuff later. Oh, and I might show you guys how to add scripted cars in as well. We'll see how much time we have. So to add crashing, I'm going to first make a comment section because I like to keep my... I should be using comments. It makes things easier to follow. It's just a way to group nodes, but without sticking them into a subgraph. So I'm going to call this crash detect. And let's make this a little bit red. There we go. Okay, so the first thing we're going to need for the crash detect is we are going to need our player ID. We actually don't pass the player ID into the gameplay yet, but we can. Remember, we have the get transition variables here. I just need to go from template, player ID. And I know for a fact I already passed the player ID in when I set the scene up. So there's my spawn player, vehicle ID, goes all the way to the transition. I got my player ID, and now I need to get some data from the car. There is a node for this. It is called, I believe it's a vehicle get vehicle data. Right there. Which vehicle's data am I getting? Well, I need to get the player ID. And I believe get vehicle data needs a constant flow. So I'm going to get the flow from the on update. So the get vehicle data will fire every update tick. Now, there's a few things I can get out of this. I can get the car's position, its direction, its velocity, and its current damage. You'll see the +4 here. That's because there are some hidden things like velocity vector. So that's sort of the direction the car's moving, but not necessarily facing. If it's active or not, and its rotation. Right now, I only care about the damage. So the damage is the value of 0 meaning not damaged, and I suppose it theoretically goes to infinity. I don't know what the max damage of any car would be. And I can show you this, and it's kind of up to you how much damage you want to detect. Just to give you guys an easy sort of number, I like 7,000 to determine if a car is like a bit too destroyed to continue a scenario easily. But what we can do, we can actually use something called a log node. So it's under debug log. And because I don't know exactly what damage I want, I can just output it first. So the value here, I'm going to make the damage. And it needs a constant flow as well. And now I can actually just play the game, and it should... sorry, one thing. I forgot to say, I'm going to stop that. I've got to say use monitor here. And then I press play, is because then I get this window here, and now we can finally use this window for something. So when I say start, you see it's spamming my console with 0, 0, 0, 0. Now it's 0, 0, 0 because I unpause the game. There we go. You see, I already got 3,200 damage just from hitting into the piano. If I can crash a bit more, there you go. Now it's 4,000. Boom. 16. Oh yeah. So it's a lot of damage. It failed because I ran out of time, not because I'm too damaged. So let's add the ability to end the game if I do get too much damage. I don't need the log node right now. I'm going to get rid of that. And what we need to do, we need to compare. So it's under logic compare. We need to compare if the damage is more than a value that we decide. So again, the compare will need a flow. By default, you can see flow equals to. I don't need equals to. I want to say if A is the damage I want to target. Now, I could just press the little square button next to A, and I could write my own number in here. So I could say if it's more than 6,000. Or I could use a number node and set it like that. And it could even be a variable, which I'll go into that later. Normally, I don't mind. Let's put it as a node actually, just because it's a bit difficult here. The A, it just has a little padlock, and you have to click on it to see the number. So let's not make that an override and use this, and just say the number here is going to be 6,000. Okay. And then B is going to be the damage. It needs a constant flow, and I want to say. So what I should say is. I should actually invert this. I think that'll be easier just for logic's sake. I want to say if A is greater than B, then, so if A, so the damage is greater than B, that would be true, which would be the fail state. So I want to just go straight into, it says transition success here, but I want to go to transition fail here. If it's false, we don't need to do anything, because if it's false, that just means you haven't crashed yet. And you might notice it's a bit annoying having this like long, connection going across here. What I like to do sometimes is for kind of self-explanatory nodes like a transition fail, I like to right-click, toggle hide, right-click, toggle hide, and then because I kind of know that I can still hover over this and see the connections, but I don't need to see it all the time. Same goes for rocks ID. I call that a kind of self-evident connection. So I just kind of get rid of them there just to clean things up a little bit. My golden rule is to try and keep the connections only for the core flow. Same for this, like resetting the flow switch. I don't need a huge connection there. There we go. That's better. Okay. So let's just test it. It should work, so I'm going to press play. And I'm just going to start. And I'm just going to smash into that sign in front of me. There we go. Instantly failed. That's great. So it failed immediately. I still had time, but it failed. So that's good. Now, the fail screen, it was kind of hard to see because I had that use monitor. I had the, Flowgraph monitor up. But it just says, you failed, and it just said disappoint or whatever, something silly. But I would like it to be a little bit more smart. Now, there's two ways we could do this. Well, there's a few ways, but the obvious way would be to maybe in my flow here, I have a single fail. I could have two fail states. One of them's failing for crashing, one of them's failing for time up. However, I don't want to have two of these because, again, it's another tab up here, and fail logic is very simple. The only thing I really need to change is text. So we could use a variable instead. So when I go to gameplay, when I transition, I could pass in some transition nodes, so I could add a new pin that's called, sort of like crash, like is crash or is timer. However, I like to make these variables, and the reason for that is because sometimes I find myself needing to reference it in many places. Something I will pass in, though, is also the current damage. That we might be able to use that, but I'll talk about that later. So first, let's make some variables. What I'm going to do, I'm going to go to Windows inside of Flowgraph, show variables. Variables pop up on the right top tab, for me at least. I don't know if it changes for different people, so I'm going to click variables. Okay, now I currently have no variables. I have current graph variables up here and project variables. I normally make variables project variables if I only need something in the current graph. So current graph variables would mean variables inside of gameplay or main game perhaps. But I just like to make them project variables. That's the equivalent of a global variable. So I'm going to press plus, new variable. And I do not want a number, I would like a bool. And I will call this is crashed. And I'm going to say create another is time up. And I'm going to make one more variable. I'm going to call it game started. Okay, that's all the variables I need to create. Now, what's really nice about Flowgraph is it's automatically made nodes for these. Oh, sorry, I just realized for some reason it assumed these are string. I want this to be a bool. I know that, by the way, because I know the colors. So red is bool, green is number, purple is string. So I want these to be booleans. There we go. These are all booleans. A boolean is a true or false, yes or no. Now, when you've crashed the game, not only do I want you to transition out into the fail state, I want to quickly set the node. So I'm going to delete this connection first. Inside my crash group, I want to quickly go to node library, and I'm going to type in is crashed. There we go. Now, Flowgraph has automatically made a get is crashed and set is crashed. So I want to set is crashed. If true, remember if A more than B, that's true, you have crashed. So I'm going to go to is crashed, and I'm just going to override this with a, there you go, that's true, false, true, false. I want it to be true. And then we're going to transition out back to where we were. Now, as you can imagine, I need to do the same for the timer. So when the time is completed, that means it's time's up. So I'm going to delete that. Is time. Set is time up. Boom, boom. And the exact same thing. Set it to true. There we go. This up here, that is time up here, you can actually access all your variables up here, which is quite nice. And you can define the default value here. So by default, I want it off, not on. It's a bit confusing. This is the default value, okay? I want it off by default, and I need to ensure that it's always off by default. So I need to, in my setup scene and my restart scene, I need to make sure they're all set correctly. But we'll do that later. So I now have these two variables. Sorry, I need to override you on, yes. So I'm going to go to my fail state. And remember my end screen, I have a title, some text, progress, which I'll talk about in another video, your success string, your fail string, all that. It doesn't really matter. What I care about is I do care about the fail string. I don't care about the progress. I'm going to hide the things I don't care about right now. I don't care about stats change. I will go into that, but probably not this video. I kind of need to refresh myself on it. So I'm going to write down the strings that I want. So I just need a string first. I'm going to make two strings. Control C, Control V. And sometimes you are allowed to like overwrite the name of a node. It's still a string node, but I can call this times up text. And this one I will call crashed text. And of course, I don't want to say hello world. It can be as big as you want it. You can make it a multi-line if you need to. I'm just going to say you ran out of time. And I think you can imagine for the crash, I'm just going to say. So the fail string, it can't obviously be both of these, right? I mean, because it can only accept one, right? So that's not good. So we're going to need two things. We are going to need a branch, which is another logic condition. We'll actually need two branches. And we are going to need a switch. Not a switch case, I think it's just a switch. Not a switch case. It's a bit confusing, they have the same icon, but we actually need a select, because we're going to select which text to use. First things first, let's get the select connected. So I'm going to have a count of 2. And then we're going to have times up be select 1 and crash text be select 2. And how do we decide which one's selected? Well, first we need to get our bool. So we're going to get is time up, and we're going to get is crashed. So we can't just put the boolean into our select because it needs a flow to work. So instead, what we're going to do is we're going to say is time up condition, and this will need a constant flow. It could also happen on the enter state, actually. I'm going to stick in the enter state for now because I only care about this once, and that's the first time we actually build the. That's the first time we build this end screen UI. So branch, and it's basically going to say condition. If condition is true, then I want you to select the time up text. If it's false, then what we can do is a sort of this is just kind of a logic check to make sure that we can't have both a. I was going to say that there is a case that if I'm not careful, I could have is time up true and is crash true. What happens then? Well, the select you can tell it to merge functions. So what that means is if it did get two positives, it would default to the first option. I could also make it default to the last option, and there's more details there. I don't really care that much. I'm just going to say if is crashed, condition. And if you don't like that, what I could do is I could step this. So I could say if is time up is false, go into the branch, and then the branch will check is crash true or false. And then it could do that one, and it can say, yes or no. So if that's true, select that one. I apologize. You do need to add a flow for the select to work. I'm just going to say if true, I want to flow, and if it's true on the other one, I want to flow as well. There is technically option for a dead end here of false, and if false, I'm not going to capture that because I always know there will be an is time up or is crashed. If I wanted to catch it, I could maybe just feed it back into the end state here, and it would probably just bring up nothing as the end text. But I'm confident that this will never happen. So let's test it. Let's test the crash first. Boom. You crashed. Oh no. Now if I press retry, we have a problem. My timer isn't retiming itself. So let's fix that first. The reason why that wasn't working was because, remember, I made the decision to make this to work on the enter state, which is fine, again, because I only need it to work once, but the reset actually needs to listen the whole time. So I need the on update to go into the controls reset. The controls reset can be thought of as a listener. It literally just listens for if you hit the reset button on the end screen, or if you press the reset key on your keyboard, or if you reset in the menus. So I can test this again. So now I am going to crash. It works. I'm going to retry. Start the game. And my timer's working again. Now it's a 20-second timer. I'm going to cut to when its time's up, and I'm pretty sure that we're going to see a failed screen with the correct text. Look at that. It says here, you ran out of time, instead of what it said before, which was you crashed. Retry again. Now this is working pretty well. But, have you noticed that? I crashed, but it said you ran out of time. Well, what's going on here? Remember, I didn't reset the is crashed variable. So what we can do is we can go to we can do that in the restart function, which I'm already here. So we reset the prefab in the reset. We move our vehicles back. We move the vehicle where it needs to go. We move the rocks where they need to go. We reset the ground markers, and then after that, before I go into the success or the continue, I want to say set is time's up. And I want to set that to false. Same with the exact same thing with the crashed. Sorry, I made two. Same thing with the crashed. False. Now every time I restart the game, it will be false. And whenever I start the flow graph, they will be false because I set them false in the when you click on any of them. It's false here. So whenever you start this, it will be false. Even if you give this mission to friends or you put it on the repo and they play it, it doesn't remember the variable on multiple playthroughs. It only remembers the variables during the game. So the second you say start scenario to when you end the scenario, these variables will be remembered, but it won't remember for multiple playthroughs. So in the last flow graph video, I showed you how to add prefabs into the mission so you wouldn't feel, so the mission would feel a bit more lively. Well, there's nothing more alive than actually having other cars to interact with. So let's add a non-player car and let's show what we can do with that. So we have spawn, rock, spawn, player. I am going to copy the spawn player nodes, Control C, Control V, and let's choose a vehicle to interact with. In the last version, there was a new car added, so I want to have that car. I don't know if it's a truck or a car. Let's go to truck. It would be the MD series. There we go, MD series, and the config. Oh, ambulance might be funny. Might be a bit big. Let's do the flatbed. And the position I want him, let's spawn him a little bit up the road to our right. So I'm gonna move the flow graph editor, and then I'm gonna find the original transform. Sorry, my camera's all the way. So this is where my player spawns. But I want this car to spawn a little bit up the road, away from the player's view. And my idea is maybe it can pass by or something. And it's going to copy my player's rotation. And I know my player is looking out to the sea, and I want this car to look that way. And move you a little bit down. Even if I don't use the monitor, I'm pretty sure when I press play, I get snapped into my player car. Let's find out. I almost forgot, though. I need the flow for when I spawn the rocks to also spawn this truck. And then when it's loaded, I want to have a success transition. Okay, now let's press play. I'm going to say use more. I'm going to press play. Oh, that's annoying. It's made the truck the player. But I said don't replace player. Alright, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to press stop. Let's figure out what's happening here. So what I'm going to do, I am going to force it to enter vehicle. Okay, so when it's loaded, I'm going to force you to enter the vehicle. And which vehicle? I do not want it to be the spawn, this vehicle. I want it to be the player vehicle. There we go. And now when I press play, and I'll use the monitor. There we go. Now, you actually saw there's a bit of a snap between that car and the player car. That's a bit annoying, but what I would normally do is I would black the screen out first. So, to black the screen out is the first thing I do before I set the UI layout. I want to black. Alright, so I have a fade from black and a fade to black. I want to fade to black first. And I believe this will need a constant flow because, yeah, there you go. So I want to fade to black first, and then when it's complete, and I want to keep the flow firing. I don't want it to be, if I want it to fire once, I would say completed, but I want the flow to keep firing, just because I don't know if it's going to mess up anything down the road. Doesn't really matter, I think, for the setup phase, but... So when that's all done, after I've entered the vehicle, I want to fade from black. Flow. And then when you are complete or completed, let's go into the next one. Let's see how that works. I'm going to say use monitor again. Press play. Faded to black. And then it comes in, and I didn't see my car do that awkward jump. And remember, I can add a wait function if you want a little bit more time between loads. If you see here, remember I have a wait function for detecting when you win the game. I want a little wait. So if you want to see that, please check out the first video. And there may be a better way to not have this jump into the vehicle by default. I thought if I said replace player to be false, that would have done it. There might have been like a keep camera. And yes, doing some own research, you want to say keep camera. It's a little bit confusing. That means keep your current camera. The reason why I didn't have this problem with the camera jumping before was because in the rocks, I actually did the same thing. I said keep camera to be true. So what happened was spawn the prefabs, which by the way, I think your camera would also snap to them perhaps if I didn't have anything else. Then I said spawn vehicle. Spawn vehicle, I did not say keep camera, so the camera went to my first player vehicle. Then it spawned the rocks. I said keep the camera where it is, so it didn't move. And then when I added my new NPC, then it jumped because I didn't say keep camera. So that's why. It's still good to use the fade from black, but just to tell you that's why I had that problem. Okay, so I have my spawn vehicle, and I would like to keep some information from that spawn vehicle, so I'm going to say add pin. New pin, that's going to be, I'm going to call this the NPC, non-player character ID. And I'm going to add another pin, and I want the position and rotation of it. Again, I just need I need this information just because of, I need this information for the resetting. That's going to be vector 3. Add one more pin. I press enter, by the way. You have to press enter every time you input in these fields. If you don't, it'll get restarted to whatever it was before. So NPC ID. Okay, that's great. And I'm going to make sure I feed those in. Sorry, I got to go this way. NPC position, NPC rotation, and the NPC ID. Okay. Now, let's make this guy move. So, I'm going to do that over on the gameplay. And there's quite a few things we can do. So, first, let's get the player ID. Oh, sorry, the NPC ID. Add pin from template, and it should be here. NPC ID. And now, it depends how much you know about BeamNG and how you can make AI or anything work. We have a few options. So if I type in just AI first, we have some AI things. We have AI follow waypoints. This would load in a navigation path as a table. I'll be honest, I haven't done this yet, so I'm not going to talk about it. But you could also just set the AI to flee, to stop, to chase, to arrive. Those are different AI types. If you've ever played with the AI app inside of BeamNG, it's the exact same things. But sometimes you want a little bit more control over what your AI does. So we are going to use AI path from file. And what we can do is we can actually record our own AI driving and then play it back again. So the directly to would be good if I needed the AI to go in a straight line, but I don't want the AI to go in a straight line. I would like it to drive down a road. So I'm going to show you how to do that. The easiest way I found is to go into my setup scene, and I want to take control. I want to enter the vehicle of the actual AI car, not the player car. So I'm going to delete the enter vehicle and now move it to this new, to the AI truck I've made. I'm going to press play. Okay, and now I'm the truck. I'm going to quickly play the game, and I'm going to press pause. Then I'm going to press F11 to open up the world editor. I want to go to Window, Gameplay, Script AI Manager. Now, this lists all of the, what I would say, controllable things in the game. So basically, this is all the physics objects. Remember, I had the piano, I had the cone ignore, that was something I put in. The Pessima, which is the player car, the rocks at the end of the game, and this, and it's already selected me on the car I'm on. So what I want to do is I just want to press record, and then I'm going to quickly press F11, unpause, and and start driving. And now it's going to record exactly how I drive. So I'm going to deliberately make sure I hit into this, and then go around the corner here. And it's going to run out of time. I'm going to press F11 again, and stop the recording. And now you can see that this is the path that I just drove. You can edit this and do a lot of things with it. There are other tutorials about the Script AI Manager, so I'm not gonna talk about it here. All I want is I would like to save this. So I'm gonna press the little save icon here, save recording, and just name it. I'll just name it Toot MD Series. Okay. Now that's saved. You can play the recording again if you'd like to. There it is. I don't need to see it go through the whole thing again. Press stop. Close this. I am now going to stop the Flowgraph. It's gotten rid of the truck, cleaned up everything, and now let's go back into Flowgraph. Before I forget, I'm going to quickly set the enter vehicle back to the player vehicle, and then go back into my gameplay. And I want to first AI path from file, and it doesn't have anything in here, but if I go up to the top left here, just click on the drop down, and oh, there it is, Toot MD Series. I believe this is in your replays folder. You'd have to look for where they are, but you can move this if you want to, but it's quite nice that it automatically tries to find everything for you there. And then I would like to AI follow path. There we go. And now the vehicle ID is the NPC, and now the path is this. We've never seen this before. This is called a table. It's a Lua table. So this actually has quite a lot of information already packed into it. We'll go into that more later. And again, this will need a flow to work. So I'm going to press play. Remember, I put the fade to black in there, so now it's loading up everything. Okay, and I can see my truck just there in the distance. I'm going to press start. And now the truck should be moving. Oh, I can hear it. And look at that, he is moving. Oh, he's zooming all right. There we go. And now I have a little, AI buddy. And of course, it doesn't have to be scripted. Let's press retry and see what happens. Yeah, so my truck's no longer there, but of course the car hasn't reset either. I could hear the truck was still driving, or started driving again, so it tries to follow the path, but his position needs to be reset. Luckily, when I set this up, I already passed in the NPC's position and rotation, so in the reset, I just need to do that again. So I'm just going to say Control-C, Control-V this one, and I want the... Just again, I like to daisy chain them all together just so I know that everything gets done. Vehicle ID should be, I need to go to the get variables first, and from template NPC ID, from template NPC position, from template NPC rotation, the exact same thing. Ba-doom. Now it should work when it resets. But before I do that, as I was trying to say earlier, you don't need to follow a path, so I can actually, get rid of this for now. We'll keep this, because I probably will want this. But I can also just set this car to act like AI. So if I wanted this to, I don't know, be like a scary game, we are in October after all, I could give it an AI chase. Same deal, I would like the flow to be constant to reset the AI once I reset the state. The AI vehicle will be the NPC, and the target will be the player. Now when I play the game, start. I can hear him moving. I shall stay over here. Oh Lord, he's after me. Ah! Ah! There we go, and I crashed. And you could also even add AI traffic. Now, I'm going to be honest with you, I've never done this before. I'm going to get rid of the chase AI because I don't want that for my mission. But you could even set the traffic, you can even set it to AI traffic. Now, I'm going to put this on, but what this, I believe, should do is this truck should then drive sort of like a normal, traffic. So let's try that out. Start. So I can hear the truck moving. Oh, he's reversing. Oh, there he is. He's driving. And now he's just driving like a normal person. This is fine, but and he should stop if there's like a... Oh, there you go. See? He stopped because the piano was in front of him. Because, AI traffic tries to drive like law-abiding citizens. And he stopped because he didn't want to hit the piano. And I totally forgot to record an outro after recording all this. So, as always, the typical YouTube thing, I guess, would be please like, comment, and subscribe and all that junk. If you like this, please feel free to leave any comments if you want to learn anything else. Right now, I'm going to be focusing on my own Flowgraph mission when I have time, which are missions that are based around the Stuntman games. If you remember the PS2 and later Xbox 360 game, which was called Stuntman Ignition. I'm building up some scenarios based on that using Flowgraph quite heavily. And I may later make a tutorial about some of the custom things I did for that because some nodes don't work the way I want them to, so I copied and pasted them and made them my own. Yeah, but thanks for watching. Have a good day or evening or night or whatever you do. I'm really bad at this part. Bye.